The throne room of the Lunari Empire was made of living crystal. It grew from the floor like frozen music, catching the light of 3 distant suns and breaking it into 1,000 colors. Emperor Varath sat upon his throne and watched the colors dance across the walls. He had watched them for 800 years. He was tired of their beauty. His daughter was dying. Princess Yuna lay in her chambers 3 floors above, surrounded by the finest healers in the empire. They moved around her like ghosts, their crystalline bodies catching and releasing light as they worked. They spoke in soft voices. They touched her with gentle hands. And they could do nothing. The fating had taken her just as it had taken her mother, her grandmother, and every royal heir for 3 generations. It was a curse written into their blood, a slow decay that turned their crystalline bones to dust and their silver blood to water. The priests said it was punishment from the old gods. The scientists said it was a genetic mutation. Varath did not care what it was. He only cared that it was killing his child. He stood from his throne and walked to the great window that overlooked his empire. 1,000 worlds answered to him. 10,000 ships flew his banners across the stars. He had power that most beings could not imagine. And he could not save one small girl. A servant approached him with quiet footsteps. "Your Majesty, the human ambassador has arrived." Varath turned slowly. He had almost forgotten about the humans. They had sent a request for a trade meeting 6 months ago, and he had agreed only because his advisors insisted. The humans were new to the galactic stage. They had only discovered faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. They were loud, chaotic, and short-lived. Most of the older races treated them like children, but Varath had heard stories about them. Strange stories. "Send him in," the Emperor said. The doors opened and a human walked in. His name was Taiho Kang, and he was unlike anyone Vora had ever seen. Where the Lunari were tall and thin with skin like polished glass, this human was broad and solid. His skin was an opaque brown, his hair black and thick, his eyes dark and warm. He moved with a confidence that seemed almost rude in the presence of an emperor. "Your Majesty," Taiho said, bowing his head. His voice was deep and clear. "Thank you for receiving me. You have come to discuss trade," Varath said flatly. "What do humans have that the Lunari Empire could possibly want?" Taiho smiled. It was a strange expression. The Lunari did not smile. "Many things, Your Majesty. But I understand if you are distracted. I have heard about the princess. I am sorry for your suffering." Varath's eyes narrowed. "You know nothing of my suffering." "Perhaps not," Taiho agreed. "But I know something of illness. And I know that human medicine is different from anything else in the galaxy." This caught Varath's attention. He had heard the rumors, of course. The humans did not heal the way other species did. They did not use light therapy or crystal harmonics or genetic meditation. They used knives, chemicals, radiation. They cut their own bodies open and put machines inside. It was barbaric. It was horrifying. It was also, according to some reports, remarkably effective. "Your people heal with violence," Varath said slowly. "You poison yourselves. You burn yourselves. You cut pieces out and replace them with metal and plastic." "Yes," Taiho said simply. "And we survive." Varath was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "Come with me." He led the human ambassador up the crystal stairs to his daughter's chambers. The healers stepped aside as he entered, their faces showing surprise at the presence of an outsider. Varath ignored them. He walked to his daughter's bedside and looked down at her. Yuna was beautiful, even now. Her skin was the pale blue of winter ice, and her hair flowed like liquid silver across her pillow. But her beauty was fading. Her skin had become too thin, almost transparent. Her eyes, when she opened them, were clouded with pain. She was 19 years old, and she looked like she was already dead. "This is my daughter," Vorath said to Taiho. "She has the fading. Our healers say she has weeks to live. Perhaps less." Taiho stepped closer to the bed. He studied the princess with careful eyes, taking in her shallow breathing, the trembling of her hands, the way her crystalline bones seemed to glow from within. He was quiet for a long time. "I am not a doctor," he said finally, "but I know people who are. The best in human space. If you allow it, I can take her to Earth, to our medical facilities." Vorath felt something cold move through his chest. Hope. He had forgotten what it felt like. "And what would you do to her there?" he asked. "Cut her open? Poison her blood? Fill her with your machines?" "Maybe all of those things," Taiho admitted. "Our medicine is not gentle, Your Majesty. It is not pretty or elegant. It is brutal and painful and sometimes cruel. But it works. We have conquered diseases that should have killed us 1,000 times over. We have rebuilt broken bodies from nothing. We have taught death to be afraid of us." He looked directly into the Emperor's eyes. "I cannot promise that we will save her, but I can promise that we will fight for her life harder than anyone has ever fought before." Vorath turned back to his daughter. She had opened her eyes and was looking at the human with weak curiosity. She had never seen one before. She probably thought he was ugly, with his solid skin and his strange dark eyes. "Father," she whispered. Her voice was like wind through dead leaves. "Who is this?" "A human," Vorath said. "He wants to take you to his world. He says his people might be able to heal you." Yuna was quiet. Then she asked, "Will it hurt?" Taiho answered before Vorath could speak. "Yes, it will hurt very much. But you will live." The princess closed her eyes. A single tear, silver like mercury, rolled down her cheek. "I am so tired of dying slowly," she said. "I would rather hurt and live than fade away in peace." Vorath made his decision in that moment. He would send his only child across the galaxy to a race of barbarians who healed with knives and fire. He would trust her life to a people he barely understood. "Take her," he said to Taiho. "Heal her, and I will give your people access to our star-forged technology. You will become the most powerful humans in the galaxy." He stepped closer, and his voice became cold. "But if she dies, if you fail, I will burn your homeworld to ashes. Every city, every forest, every ocean. There will be nothing left but dust and memory." Taiho did not flinch. "Understood, Your Majesty." The human lifted the princess from her bed. She weighed almost nothing in his arms, light as a bundle of dry flowers. Her head rested against his chest, and she could hear his heart beating. It was so different from a Lunari heart. Loud and strong and steady, like a drum calling soldiers to war dot as Taiho carried her toward the door. Yuna looked back at her father one last time. She wanted to say something, but she did not have the strength. So she simply looked at him, trying to memorize his face. She did not know if she would ever see him again. The human ship waited outside the Crystal Palace. It was ugly by Lunari standards, all hard angles and thick metal, built for function rather than beauty. But as Yuna was carried aboard, she felt something she had not felt in a long time. She felt like she might actually survive. The journey to Earth took 12 days. Yuna spent most of it unconscious, drifting in and out of fevered dreams. Sometimes she woke to find Taiho sitting beside her bed, reading from a small device or speaking quietly with his crew. Other times she woke to silence and darkness, alone with the hum of the ship's engines. She had never been alone before. On her homeworld, she was surrounded by servants and healers every moment of every day. Now there was just the emptiness of space and the strange humans who moved through the ship like ghosts. They were so different from her people. They laughed loudly. They touched each other casually. They ate strange foods that smelled like nothing she had ever encountered. On the 8th day, she was strong enough to ask questions. "What will they do to me?" she asked Taiho. "You're doctors." He was quiet for a moment. "I do not want to frighten you. I am already frightened. Tell me the truth." So he told her. He told her about surgery, about how human doctors cut bodies open to repair what was broken inside. He told her about chemotherapy, about poisoning the blood to kill the sickness. He told her about radiation treatment, about burning the body from the inside. He told her about bone marrow transplants and organ replacements and genetic therapy. Yuna listened without speaking. When he was finished, she said, "Your people are monsters." "Yes," Taiho agreed. "But we are monsters who refuse to die." Earth appeared on the view screen on the 12th day. It was a blue and green jewel hanging in the blackness, swirled with white clouds. Yuna had seen thousands of planets in pictures, but she had never seen one like this. It was alive in a way that her crystalline homeworld was not. It looked soft and warm and wild. The ship landed at a place called the Global Medical Center in a city called Seoul. Yuna was carried from the ship on a stretcher, too weak now to walk. The sunlight hit her face, and she gasped. It was yellow, not blue like the light of her home suns. It felt different on her skin, warmer and more chaotic. People were waiting for her. Dozens of them, all wearing white coats and serious expressions. They surrounded her stretcher and began speaking rapidly, using words she did not understand. Someone shined a light into her eyes. Someone else pressed cold metal against her chest. Hands touched her everywhere, measuring and testing and probing. One face stood out from the crowd. A woman with short black hair and tired eyes. She pushed through the other doctors and looked down at Yuna with an expression that was not scientific curiosity. It was something else. Something warmer. "I am Dr. Harry Yoon," the woman said. Her voice was calm and gentle. "I will be taking care of you. Can you understand me?" Yuna nodded weakly. "Good. I know you are scared. I know everything feels strange and wrong. But I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" Yuna looked into the doctor's eyes. They were dark brown, almost black, and they held a kindness that Yuna had rarely seen in anyone. "I will try," she whispered. The tests began immediately. Yuna was placed inside machines that scanned every part of her body. She was poked with needles and connected to tubes. Her blood was drawn. Her tissue was sampled. Her brain was mapped. The doctors spoke in grave voices, pointing at screens full of images she could not understand. Finally, after many hours, Dr. Yoon came to her room. Taiho was there too, standing by the window with his arms crossed. The doctor sat beside Yuna's bed and took a deep breath. "Your condition is very serious," she said. "Your crystalline bone structure is dissolving. Your organs are shutting down one by one. Your blood is losing its ability to carry oxygen." She paused. "By our estimates, you have 3 weeks to live. Maybe less." Yuna had known this already, but hearing it from a stranger made it feel more real. "Can you save me?" she asked. Dr. Yoon did not answer immediately. She looked at Taiho, then back at Yuna. "I do not know," she admitted. "Your biology is very different from ours. Many of our treatments may not work on you. Some of them may make things worse." She leaned forward. "But I can promise you this. We will try everything. We will fight for your life with every tool we have. Even if it hurts. Even if it seems cruel. Because that is what we do. We do not accept death until death forces us to." The treatment began the next morning. They started with gene therapy. The doctors injected tiny machines, called nanobots, into Yuna's blood. These machines carried new genetic code, designed to repair the damaged parts of her DNA. Yuna felt them moving through her veins like fire. She screamed until her voice gave out. And still the machines kept working. A nurse named G.A. Beak held her hand through the worst of it. She was a small woman with a round face and kind eyes. She sang songs in a language Yuna did not understand, and somehow the sound of her voice made the pain easier to bear. "Why are you doing this?" Yuna gasped between screams. "You do not know me. You have no reason to help me." G.A. smiled sadly. "Because you are suffering, and I can help. That is reason enough." The Lunari observers watched everything. Emperor Vorath had sent 3 of his advisors to Earth to monitor his daughter's treatment. They stood in the corners of every room, recording everything with their crystalline eyes. They sent reports back to the Emperor every day. The reports were not kind. They described the humans as savages. They wrote about how the doctors cut into Yuna's skull to relieve the pressure building in her brain. They wrote about how she was strapped to a table while machines burned the disease from her bones. They wrote about the tubes that fed chemicals directly into her heart, chemicals that made her vomit and shake and cry. "They are torturing her," one observer wrote. "They treat healing like warfare. They attack the body as if it were an enemy to be defeated. There is no grace in their methods, no respect for the natural order, only violence and determination." But they also wrote something else. "The princess is stabilizing. Against all logic, against all expectation, her vital signs are improving. The humans are winning their war." Weeks passed. Yuna lost count of the surgeries. She lost count of the injections, the treatments, the long nights of pain that seemed to have no end. Her body changed slowly. Her crystalline bones became denser, reinforced with synthetic materials that the humans had designed just for her. Her blood began to change color, shifting from pure silver to something darker, something redder. Dr. Yoon visited her every day. Sometimes she brought food, strange earth dishes that Yuna could barely eat. Sometimes she brought books, stories from human history that she read aloud in her calm voice. Sometimes she just sat in silence, holding Yuna's hand while the princess cried. "Why do you care so much?" Yuna asked one night, "Your world is threatened because of me. If I die, my father will destroy everything you love. You should hate me." Dr. Yoon shook her head. "I could never hate you. You are just a sick girl who wants to live. The politics, the threats, the empires and armies, none of that matters in this room. In here, you are just my patient. And I will save my patient, no matter what it takes." Yuna learned her first human word that night. She had heard the doctors and nurses use it many times, but she had never understood its meaning until now. The word was friend. She whispered it to herself in the darkness, tasting its strange shape on her tongue. It was a good word, a warm word. She decided she liked it. Somewhere far away, across the vast emptiness of space, Emperor Vorath read the latest report from his observers. He read about the violence and the pain, the cutting and the burning and the poisoning. He read about his daughter's screams, and then he read that she was getting stronger. He set down the report and looked out at the crystal towers of his palace. He did not understand the humans. He was not sure he ever would. But perhaps, just perhaps, they would save his daughter after all. Perhaps monsters were exactly what she needed. 3 months had passed since Yuna arrived on Earth. 3 months of pain and fear and endless treatments. 3 months of needles and machines and the constant beeping of monitors. 3 months of waking up each morning not knowing if she would survive until night. And now she was. Standing on her own 2 feet, Dr. Yoon watched from the doorway as Yuna took her first steps across the hospital room. The princess moved slowly, carefully, like a newborn animal learning to walk. Her legs trembled with effort. Sweat dripped down her face. But she did not fall. "You are doing wonderful," Dr. Yoon said softly. "Take your time. Yuna reached the window and pressed her hand against the glass. Outside, the city of Seoul spread out beneath her, a maze of towers and streets and tiny moving figures. She had never seen so many people in one place. Her homeworld was beautiful but empty, all crystal palaces and silent gardens. Earth was loud and messy and full of life. She turned to look at herself in the mirror hanging on the wall. What she saw made her catch her breath. She was different now, changed in ways that went beyond simple healing. Her skin, once pale blue and translucent, had become opaque. It was still crystalline, still catching the light in strange ways, but it was denser now, stronger. The humans had reinforced her bones with synthetic materials, and she could feel the difference in every movement. She felt solid in a way she had never felt before. But the biggest change was inside her chest. Her heart had been the weakest part of her body. Lunari hearts were delicate things, made of light and energy rather than muscle and blood. They flickered like candles, beautiful but fragile. The fading had attacked her heart first, causing it to stutter and skip and slowly grow dim. The humans had replaced it, not entirely. They had not removed her Lunari heart. Instead, they had wrapped it in human tissue, reinforced it with synthetic muscle, connected it to a network of tiny machines that kept it beating even when it wanted to stop. Her heart was now a hybrid thing, part Lunari and part human. And it beat with a power she had never known before. She pressed her hand to her chest and felt the steady rhythm. Thump, thump, thump. It was so loud compared to the gentle flickering she was used to. It sounded like drums, like thunder, like war. What am I now? She asked Dr. Yoon. Her voice had changed too. It was stronger, clearer. I am not Lunari anymore. But I am not human either. Dr. Yoon walked over and stood beside her. You are something new, she said. Something the galaxy has never seen before. Your body is a bridge between our species. You carry the best of both. Yuna looked at her hands. They were still crystalline, still beautiful in the Lunari way. But beneath the crystal skin, she could see veins carrying blood that was no longer pure silver. It was darker now, touched with red. Human blood flowed through her alongside her native cells, keeping her alive in ways her own biology never could. My father will call me an abomination, Yuna said quietly. The priests will say I have been corrupted. The nobles will say I am no longer fit to inherit the throne. Perhaps, Dr. Yoon admitted. But you will be alive to hear them say it. Is that not worth something? Yuna thought about this. She remembered lying in her bed on her homeworld, too weak to move, watching the light fade from her own hands. She remembered the endless parade of Lunari healers, all of them gentle and kind and completely useless. She remembered accepting that she would die, that she would fade away like all the royal heirs before her. Yes, she said finally. It is worth everything. The next phase of her recovery was physical therapy. Dr. Yoon introduced her to a woman named Yoonji Shin, who would be responsible for rebuilding her strength. Yoonji was different from the doctors and nurses Yuna had met. She was tall and muscular, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. She did not speak softly or treat Yuna like a fragile thing. She spoke plainly and expected Yuna to keep up. You have a new body, Yoonji said on their first day of training, but you do not know how to use it yet. Your muscles are strong, but your mind still thinks you are weak. We need to fix that. The training was brutal. Yoonji made Yuna run until her legs gave out. She made her lift weights until her arms screamed. She made her climb and jump and push herself past every limit she thought she had. Yuna hated it. She hated the pain, the exhaustion, the constant demands. She had been a princess all her life. She had been carried by servants, fed by attendants, protected from every discomfort. Now she was sweating on the floor of a gymnasium, gasping for breath, while a human woman shouted at her to get up and try again. But slowly, something began to change. She began to feel her new body awakening. She began to understand what the humans had given her. Her muscles grew stronger every day. Her reflexes became faster. Her endurance increased until she could run for hours without tiring. One day, Yoonji taught her to fight. "Why would I need to fight?" Yuna asked. "I am a princess, not a warrior." "Because strength is not just about power," Yoonji explained. "It is about knowing what your body can do. It is about confidence. When you know you can defend yourself, you walk differently. You speak differently. You become someone who cannot be ignored." So Yuna learned. She learned to throw punches and block kicks. She learned to grapple and wrestle and escape from holds. She learned the human art of combat, which was not elegant like Lunari martial traditions, but was brutally effective. Weeks passed. Yuna grew stronger. She sparred with Yoonji every day, and slowly she began to win more often than she lost. Her crystalline body, reinforced with human technology, proved to be remarkably durable. She could take hits that would have shattered her old form. She could move with speed and power that no pure Lunari could match. One afternoon, she knocked Yoonji to the ground and pinned her there. It was the first time she had defeated her trainer completely. Yoonji laughed from her position on the floor. "Well done, princess. I think you are ready." "Ready for what?" Yuna asked. "Ready to go home." The words hit Yuna like a physical blow. Home. She had been so focused on surviving, on healing, on becoming stronger, that she had almost forgotten about her homeworld, about her father, about the throne that waited for her. She stood up slowly and walked to the window. The sun was setting over Seoul, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It was beautiful in a wild and chaotic way that her homeworld could never match. "I do not know if I belong there anymore," she said quietly. "I have changed so much. I am not the girl who left." Yoonji came to stand beside her. "No, you are not. You are stronger now. You are better. And your people need to see what you have become." Dr. Yoon and Nurse Jie came to say goodbye the next morning. They hugged Yuna tightly, something that would have been unthinkable between strangers on her homeworld. But she had learned to understand human affection. She had learned to appreciate the warmth of touch. "Thank you," Yuna said, and she meant it with all of her hybrid heart. "You saved my life. You gave me a future I never thought I could have." Dr. Yoon smiled, that strange human expression that Yuna had come to love. "Go show them what you are made of," she said. "Show them that dying is not the only option." Taiho was waiting for her at the ship. He looked at her differently now, she noticed. Not like a fragile patient. Not like a burden he was carrying for political reasons. He looked at her like an equal. "Your father will not recognize you," he said. Yuna touched her chest, feeling the powerful beat of her new heart. "Good," she said. "The girl he sent away deserved to be forgotten. I am someone new now." She walked up the ramp into the ship, standing tall on her own 2 feet. She did not need to be carried anymore. She would never need to be carried again. The ship rose into the sky and turned toward the stars. Toward home. Toward a future that Yuna would have to fight for. She was ready. The Crystal Palace had not changed. It still rose from the ground like frozen music, catching the light of the 3 suns and breaking it into 1,000 colors. The same servants walked the same halls. The same priests chanted the same prayers. The same nobles whispered the same gossip. But everything felt different to Yuna. Now. She descended from the human ship and stepped onto the polished crystal ground. The air smelled like home, clean and cold and empty. Around her, hundreds of Lunari had gathered to watch her return. They stared at her with expressions she could not read. Curiosity, Fear. Disgust. She did not care. Emperor Vorath stood at the entrance to the palace. He was dressed in his finest robes, crystalline white shot through with veins of gold. His face was calm, but Yuna could see the tension in his shoulders. He had not known what to expect. He had read the reports from his observers. He had seen the images and videos they had sent, but nothing could have prepared him for this. Yuna walked toward him with confident steps. Her movement was different now. She no longer drifted like a ghost. She walked like someone who knew exactly where she was going. Her feet struck the ground with purpose. Her head was held high. When she reached her father, she stopped and looked at him. He was taller than her, as he had always been. But she no longer felt small beside him. "Father," she said. Her voice was strong and clear. "I have returned." Vorath stared at her. His eyes moved over her body, taking in all the changes. The density of her skin. The new color of her blood visible beneath the crystal. The way she stood, balanced and ready, like a warrior rather than an invalid. "Daughter," he whispered, "what have they done to you?" "They saved my life," Yuna replied simply. "They made me stronger." She stepped forward and embraced him. She felt him stiffen with surprise. The Lunari did not embrace. They touched hands. They pressed foreheads together. But they did not wrap their arms around each other like humans did. Yuna did not care about tradition anymore. After a long moment, Vorath's arms came up and held her. She felt his body trembling. When she pulled back, she saw tears in his eyes. Silver tears, like drops of mercury. "I thought I would never see you again," he admitted. "Every day, I prepared myself for the news of your death. And now," he shook his head, "now you stand before me, looking like a stranger wearing my daughter's face." "I am still your daughter," Yuna said. "I am just more than I was before." The court was not so accepting. That evening, a great feast was held to celebrate the princess's return. The nobles gathered in the crystal hall, their beautiful faces arranged in polite smiles that hid their true feelings. The priest stood in the corners, watching Yuna with barely concealed horror. One of them, an ancient Lunari named High Priest Sorath, approached her during the feast. His crystalline body was almost entirely transparent with age, his light dim and flickering. "You have been corrupted," he said, not bothering to hide his disgust. "Human blood flows in your veins. Human machines beat in your chest. You are no longer pure." Yuna looked at him calmly. Once, his words would have made her cry. Once, the disapproval of the priests would have crushed her spirit. But she had survived things far worse than harsh words. "I was pure," she replied. "And I was dying. Purity was killing me. It has killed every royal heir for 3 generations." She stepped closer to him. "Tell me, High Priest, what good is purity when you are dead?" Sorath recoiled as if she had struck him. "The old ways have sustained our empire for 10,000 years. The old ways are making us extinct." Yuna's voice rose, and she realized that the entire hall had fallen silent. Everyone was watching. "Look at us. We are the most powerful empire in the galaxy, and we cannot save our own children. We worship our traditions while they kill us." A noble named Lord Catherine stepped forward. He was young and handsome, with skin like blue ice and eyes that burned with contempt. Pretty words from someone who is no longer one of us. "You are a hybrid now, a mongrel. You have no right to speak of our traditions. No right?" Yuna felt something hot rise in her chest. Anger. It was a human emotion, one she had never really understood before. But she understood it now. "I am the only surviving heir to this empire. I have fought death itself and won. And you tell me I have no right to speak?" Lord Catherine smiled coldly. "Then prove it. If you are truly strong, as you claim, Then demonstrate your strength. Fight me. A murmur ran through the crowd. Combat challenges were rare in Lunari society, but they were not unheard of. They were a way for nobles to settle disputes without involving the emperor. If Yuna refused, she would look weak. If she accepted and lost, her claim to the throne would be weakened beyond repair. I accept, Yuna said without hesitation. Lord Catherine's smile widened. He was a trained warrior, one of the finest fighters in the Empire. He had won dozens of ceremonial duels. He expected to humiliate the fragile princess who had spent her entire life in a CKBD. He had no idea what she had become. They faced each other in the center of the hall. Catherine drew his weapon, a blade of crystallized light that hummed with energy. Yuna held nothing in her hands. You do not even carry a weapon, Catherine said, laughing. This will be even easier than I thought. Yuna smiled. It was a human smile, the kind she had learned from Dr. Yoon. I do not need one. He attacked. Catherine was fast, faster than any human fighter Yuna had trained against. His blade swept toward her in a blur of light. But Yuna was ready. She moved with speed that shocked everyone watching, ducking under the blade and stepping inside his guard. Her fist connected with his chest. The sound echoed through the hall like a thunderclap. Catherine flew backward, sliding across the polished floor. His weapon clattered from his hand. He lay gasping, clutching his chest, unable to believe what had just happened. Yuna walked toward him slowly. You have trained all your life to fight, she said. But you have never really fought. Not for survival. Not against someone who wants to kill you. She stood over him. The humans taught me something you will never understand. They taught me that strength is not about grace or beauty or tradition. Strength is about refusing to die. Catherine tried to rise. She pushed him back down with one foot. Yield, she commanded. He yielded. The hall was silent. Everyone stared at the princess, who had just defeated one of their greatest warriors in seconds. She saw fear in their eyes now. Fear and respect. Good. Two more nobles stepped forward. They were allies of Catherine, warriors who wanted to avenge their friend's humiliation. Yuna defeated them both. The first one lasted 8 seconds. The second one was smarter and lasted almost a minute. Neither one could touch her. When she was finished, she turned to face the assembled court. Her crystalline skin glistened with light sweat. Her heart pounded in her chest, loud and strong and human. I am Princess Yuna, she said, her voice ringing through the hall. Daughter of Emperor Varth, heir to the Lunari Empire. The humans did not corrupt me. They completed me. She pointed at the fallen warriors. Our bloodline was dying because we worshiped purity over survival. We refused to change, and change is the only thing that keeps a species alive. She turned to her father, who was watching with an expression she had never seen before. Pride. Absolute. Overwhelming pride. The humans have a saying, Yuna continued. Adapt or perish. I have adapted, and I will not let our empire perish. She walked to her father and knelt before him. Honor your bargain. Give them the Star-Forged technology, as you promised. And more than that, open our borders. Let our people learn from the humans as I have learned. Let us become something new, something stronger, something that will survive. Emperor Varth was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he rose from his throne and descended the steps to stand before his daughter. He reached out and touched her face, feeling the new density of her skin, the warmth of the human blood beneath. When you were born, he said softly, the prophecy said you would either save our empire or destroy it. He smiled, a rare expression on his ancient face. I finally understand. You will save us by destroying what we were. You will remake us into what we need to be. He bowed his head to her. The Emperor of the Lunari bowed to his daughter, and in that moment, everything changed. 5 years had passed since Yuna returned from Earth. 5 years of change, conflict, and slow transformation. The Lunari Empire was not the same as it had been. It never would be again. Emperor Varath had died in the 3rd year, peacefully, surrounded by his family. Yuna had held his hand as the light faded from his eyes. He had smiled at the end, telling her that he was proud, that she was everything he had hoped she would become. Now Yuna was Empress. She stood on the balcony of the Crystal Palace, looking out at a world that was changing. Below her, in the gardens that had once been empty and silent, human and Lunari scientists worked side by side. They were developing new medical treatments, combining the elegant energy medicine of the Lunari with the brutal effectiveness of human technology. They were creating something new. Taeho stood beside her. He was her consort now, her partner in all things. Their marriage had shocked the galaxy. A Lunari empress taking a human husband was unheard of. The nobles had protested. The priests had threatened divine punishment. Yuna had ignored them all. Your people still frighten mine, Yuna admitted, watching the scientists below. They say humans are reckless, that you throw yourselves against death without hesitation. Taeho nodded. We do, because we know we can win. Yuna smiled. Smiling was natural to her now. She had forgotten that Lunari did not smile before the humans came. A servant approached and bowed deeply. Your Majesty, the delegation from the Medical Institute is here. They wish to show you the new children. Yuna felt her heart skip with joy. The new children. The first generation born after the change. She followed the servant through the palace to the medical wing. This part of the palace was new, built in the years since her return. It combined Lunari crystal architecture with human medical technology. A beautiful fusion of two worlds. Dr. Minji Han, a human physician who had moved to the Lunari homeworld 3 years ago, was waiting for them. She smiled when she saw the Empress approaching. Your Majesty, thank you for coming. I think you will be very pleased. She led Yuna into a large room filled with light and warmth. And there, playing on the crystal floor, were a dozen children. They were not pure Lunari. They were not pure human. They were something new. Their skin had the crystalline quality of the Lunari, but it was denser, stronger, like Yuna's. Their blood carried both silver and red, a mixture that gave them the best qualities of both species. Their hearts beat with the steady rhythm that humans had taught the Lunari to accept. They were the first hybrid children, not created by force or accident, but by choice. Lunari parents who had seen what human medicine could do and wanted it for their children. Human scientists who had dedicated their lives to making it possible. The fating, the curse that had haunted the royal bloodline for generations, was gone from these children. Their genes had been repaired, their bodies strengthened. They would not fade away as Yuna's ancestors had faded. They would live long, full lives. A little girl ran up to Yuna. She could not have been more than 4 years old. Her skin sparkled like diamonds in the light, and her eyes were the deep brown of human ancestry. Are you the Empress? The girl asked. Her voice was high and clear. Yun and knelt down to look at her. I am. What is your name? My name is Sora, the girl said proudly. My mother says I am the future. Yuna felt tears prick her eyes. Your mother is right. Later that evening, Yuna sat in her private chambers with Taeho. The suns had set, and the stars were coming out, thousands of tiny lights in the vast darkness. Somewhere out there was Earth, the strange blue world that had saved her life. I received a message today, Yuna said. From Dr. Yun. Taeho looked up with interest. How is she? She is well. She asked about me. About us. Yuna smiled at the memory. She said she is proud of what we have built. She said she always knew I would change the galaxy. She walked to the window and looked out at the stars. When I was dying, I asked her why she worked so hard to save me. We were strangers. My father had threatened her world. She had every reason to let me die. What did she say? She said, because you were suffering, and I could help, as if it were the simplest thing in the universe. Yuna shook her head slowly. My people spent 10,000 years building an empire. Your people spent 10,000 years learning how to refuse to let anyone die alone. I am not certain which achievement is greater. Taiho came to stand beside her. He took her hand, her strange hybrid hand with its crystalline bones and human red blood beneath the skin. Why choose? He said, we have time to do both now. They stood together in silence, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, ships were carrying the story of what had happened. The story of a dying princess who was sent to the humans. The story of how they had torn her apart and put her back together, stronger than before. The story of how she had returned to her people and changed everything. The story was spreading across the galaxy, from world to world, species to species. It was being told in taverns and temples, in schools and government halls. It was becoming legend. And the legend said this. The humans had taken a dying princess and made her immortal. It was exaggeration, of course. Yuna would die someday. All things died. But she would die strong. She would die on her feet. She would die having lived, truly lived, in a way that no Lunari before her ever had. That was what it meant to be touched by humanity. Not the machines they implanted, or the chemicals they used. Not the surgeries or the treatments or the brutal methods that horrified other species. What made humans special was simpler than that. They refused to give up. On any patient. On any problem. On any challenge that the universe threw at them. They looked at death itself and said, not today. Yuna had learned this lesson in her bones, literally. It had been burned into her blood and built into her heart. And now she was teaching it to her people. Across the empire, things were changing. Lunari doctors were learning human techniques. Lunari scientists were collaborating with human researchers. Lunari parents were choosing to give their children the best of both worlds. It was not always easy. There were protests and conflicts and difficult adjustments. Change was never painless. But it was happening. Slowly, steadily, inevitably. The Lunari Empire was becoming something new. And at the center of it all was a woman who had once been too weak to lift a cup, who had faded away in a crystal palace waiting to die. Now she was an empress, a warrior, a bridge between two species. She was Yuna, daughter of Varath, wife of Taiho, mother of the future. And she was just getting started. In the medical wing, the hybrid children slept peacefully, dreaming dreams that mixed crystal and flesh, starlight and heartbeat. They did not know yet what they represented. They did not understand that they were the first generation of a new era, but they would learn. And someday, when they were old enough to understand, they would hear the story of the princess who died and was reborn. They would hear about the humans who refused to let her go. They would hear about the war that was waged not with weapons, but with medicine, a war against death itself. And they would understand that they were the victory. The stars turned slowly overhead. The suns would rise again in a few hours, beginning a new day. And with each new day, the future grew a little brighter, because that was what humans had taught the galaxy. No matter how dark the night, the dawn always comes. You just have to survive long enough to see it.